Good thing,
Contact next.
good thing we got technology.
The walls in this office are pretty.
We're good. That's how Chuck talks to me on the daily.
There are a few times Della and I would go back to the conference room to
Find a quiet spot.
Wait, we're good.
Okay, all right. Welcome, everybody, to our meeting. We will start with opening prayer. Deacon Robert?
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
Reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus came to Capernaum with his followers, and on the Sabbath he entered the synagogue and taught. The people were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. In their synagogue was a man with an unclean spirit. He cried out, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." Jesus rebuked him and said, "Quiet, come out of him." The unclean spirit convulsed him, and with a loud cry came out of him. All were amazed and asked one another, "What is this? A new teaching with authority? He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." His fame spread everywhere throughout the whole region of Galilee. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord.
Opening prayer. Lord, we long to put you first in our lives. It is easy to get caught up in daily activities, but you are not just another activity. You are our Lord and our God. We do believe in you, but we know that we need to believe in you more. We do love you, but we must still strive to love you more than we love ourselves and our plans. We wish to offer you the best of ourselves right now in this time of conversation with you.
For he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. In his encyclical, The Splendor of Truth, Pope St. John Paul II reminded us of the necessary link between freedom, truth, and the good. He went so far as to say that a correct understanding of this link is essential for the world's salvation. Jesus taught with authority because he was both the truth and the good. Our freedom consists in recognizing this and living accordingly. Do I sincerely seek the truth in my life? Do I sincerely seek what is truly good, or am I conforming myself in some way to the hedonistic and self-serving standards of the world?
What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? When our freedom refuses to recognize that Jesus is the truth and that our greatest good consists in loving and following him, we feel threatened. We try to hold on to the good we imagine that we have apart from him. He does not want to take away the good we have, but rather he wishes to increase and multiply it. But to do so, we must allow lesser goods we now have to die so that greater goods might rise with strength. Unless the seed falls to the ground and dies, it remains just a seed. But if it dies, it rises to new life.
The demands of truth. All were amazed and asked one another, "What is this? A new teaching with authority?" Today, we live in a relativistic world where truth is whatever we want it to be. Whatever makes you comfortable is the motto of the day. We are amazed when Jesus breaks the mold of relativism, revealing the lie hidden within it, and proclaims that he is the truth. When the gospel makes demands on my life, do I shift into relativism and believe that it makes no difference on how or if I respond? If the gospel makes me comfortable, I will obey. But if not, truth can be demanding, but it is a blessing that in the person of Christ, the truth is also love, mercy, goodness, and joy. Do I love the truth and strive to live in the light?
Conversation with Christ. Lord, you know how quickly we excuse ourselves from meeting your demands for our lives. We do so even while knowing that when we fulfill them, we always discover new strength, hidden energy, and untapped resources of love within us. Help us to give ourselves to you in love, meet your demands, and to experience the power of grace unleashed within us.
Together.
My adorable Jesus, may our feet journey together, may our hands gather in unity, may our hearts beat in unison, may our souls be in harmony, may our thoughts be as one, may our ears listen to the silence together, may our glances profoundly penetrate each other, and may our lips pray together to gain mercy for an eternal Father. Amen. Okay, land acknowledgement, Chuck.
Before we begin the Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education, I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional land of the Blackfoot people who have welcomed here for centuries the Cree, the Métis, other First Nations, and non-Indigenous people. The land is now recognized as the traditional territory of Treaty 7 to the north, west, and south, and Treaty 4 to the east. The Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education also wishes to thank the First Nations people, past and present, for welcoming us here.
And we have no presentations, so we'll go on to the approval of the minutes. For the public board meeting, the minutes are attached for December. Would somebody like to pass them? Dick?
There was one minor correction that I wanted to make. I just have to find it here in my, it is under committee reports, Alberta Teachers Association. The note, in the note there, it says that Mr. Master would like to thank the board and the negotiator and Janet Money. Janet Money is the negotiator, so we can strike
Yes.
negotiator there.
Sorry about that.
Okay, any other errors? Okay, can someone pass that?
Madam Chair, I'll move the
Okay.
adoption of the minutes as amended.
All in favor? Passed. I'm gonna get rid of this now. Okay, and approval of the agenda? Yes, David?
I'd like to make a change in the agenda if I could, Madam Chair.
Okay,
I'd like to ask that item 11.5
5.
be moved to the end of the agenda, please.
Okay,
So I don't know if it becomes 12 point something, or if it becomes 13 and all those other numbers just go down.
I don't know.
In essence, I'm just asking that it be the last item.
Okay. So it'll be after the committee reports.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other changes to the agenda? Okay, if I can have somebody move that, David? That the agenda dated January 10th be approved as circulated, well, as amended.
As amended.
All in favor? Okay, board communications. Catholic education, Heather. Oh,
you
sorry,
want
I'm
to
sorry.
go first?
It's Robert first.
Nothing to report.
Okay, now it's Heather.
My report is attached, if there's any questions. Answer them.
David?
I would just have a comment. That I was very encouraged. I think all the other board members who were there were also very encouraged when we were at McCoy and the administration reported to us that the new chaplain has started a Bible study group and that over 30 kids are showing up at a time. That's tremendous. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that in a public board meeting that, you know, sometimes earlier today we had a discussion about cynicism and positivity, and sometimes, you know, people talk about what difference we really are making in our Catholic schools. So to have 30 kids show up for a Bible study, that says a lot to me. So,
Yeah.
Well done.
And just to add to that, there's been at least one student talking to our chaplain about becoming baptized. And so that's something else we're really excited about too.
Yeah, and many of those students are not Catholic that are coming to the Bible study. And so are being very encouraged in our Catholic teachings. So pretty special stuff going on there. All right, is that everything? Thank you. Board work plan 9.1, approval of the 23-24. Holy man, I can't believe we're there already. Calendars. Mr. Hellman.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So there's some background there, and then I also put together a document that that you should have in front of you along with the 3 calendars. Basically, we did a thought exchange, and as you can see, we had 229 participants, 148 thoughts, and over 3,000 ratings. So there was a good chance, I think, to get this to the public. The themes that came out were quite clear, actually. So there they are in front of you. Start school year after the long weekend was a theme. Continue with the November week-long break. Coordinate with 76. And just so you know, we did coordinate as best I could with 76. Prairie Rose 76. And Medicine Hat Catholic met. And we did try and get as many PD days the same as possible. The Easter, I believe, are the same. Really, the big one was the beginning of the school year. And as I indicated, it was interesting, to say the least. So I put together 2 drafts. Actually, that was one of the things too that staff wanted. They wanted to see some calendars prior to them putting more feedback in. So I did that prior to Christmas. And so a number of schools put that on their agenda, and I heard from 8 of 9 schools after the last day of school in December. So they were able to get me feedback. And so I put together a pros and cons list there, and I also included on that what the school's feedback was. So you have that in front of you. The one I probably should add on draft 1 there, one pro is, well, we're going to be able to move forward with the planned faith day if that is the decision that the board makes. And just so the board is aware, the 25th, August 25th, that was the day we could get the bishop, and that was the day that we could get Father Leo, who's our speaker.
Had along him, he's the Filipino priest who beat Bobby Flay. He's quite a go-getter. So we have him booked for that day. I didn't look into moving him yet, but that is a factor.
Was he going to cook for us, or what was he doing?
Yeah, that's part of his
I know.
presentation, yeah, for the trustees. You guys, he doesn't feed everybody. Just make sure you guys.
I did make one comment from my feedback that I provided for you from schools, that several schools commented on potentially moving that faith day. My opinion on that is faith day at the beginning of the year for a Catholic school division is a good thing. So that's my opinion on that. So take that or leave it as you see fit. Pros and cons are there. If there's questions, I'll do my best. Like I said, this was complicated because it was very difficult to meet all of the asks of the stakeholders and still have enough instructional days in semester one with all the complications of school startup. One thing I did try to get in there was a minimum of 3 days of having teachers in prior to students starting. And my thinking on that is 1 faith day, 1 administrative meeting day, 1 school day. So principals can be back in their school. So that would, to me, that's the barest minimum. I have heard from many principals saying that, you know what, 3, you can't go less than 3 because we need to be in our schools. Other calendars have more time. As a group here, we have discussed in the past front loading August just a bit more. So one calendar does show that. Clearly, the feedback on the November week was very positive. I believe with all of the comments made, approximately 68% of all comments made were very positive for having a full week off in November. And comments I received from principals were, it's like we're able to reset. Our students are dragging down, our staff dragging down, and that we're able to reset there. So that's some comments that I received. But again, very difficult because Medicine Hat 76 and Prairie Rose, not that they have their calendars made, but when I last spoke with them, they were leaning towards starting after the long weekend in September. As this board knows, one of our strategic priorities is health and wellness, so that may or may not come into part of the discussion. Do you have any questions? I'm open.
David?
Mr. Hellman, on the draft 1 on August the 25th, it's red. So that means that's the first day for teachers.
Faith day.
That's
And first day for teachers.
And then there's no red on draft 2 in August. That's because
Because we would have to move the faith day.
this is Father Leo and the bishop.
Right.
Okay.
So we don't have a day yet. If the board chooses that day, Heather, maybe you can comment. Are we able to get Father Leo that?
I don't know.
Right.
But that's okay.
This is not a criticism. This is an idea. But next year, we ask, what would you rather have? The week in November or start in August? Or no, start after Labor Day, or, you know what I'm trying to say, like, help us out here.
Yeah, there is a calendar there for next year, correct? And so
That's,
But it has a short November.
so when, in the second draft, when do students start? The 4th, the 5th?
the second draft, they start after the long week, which is the 5th. Yeah.
And in the draft 1, when do students start?
And in draft 1, students start on the 30th.
From teachers I've heard from, they love the November break. It's right after, or it's right around report card time. It's just such a huge rest. And in the summertime, yeah, they don't like going back before the long weekend. However, they've had the summer. So I would always be in favor of the week-long November break, but that's just me.
And when do
Go ahead.
when do the beginning teachers have their day with you, Mr. Hellman?
If we go with draft 1, we're probably pulling them outside of the calendar. If we go with draft 2, potentially there's a day in there we can utilize.
And I don't know if this is, based on what you saw in these surveys, is there more support for draft 1 or draft 2?
The last piece I had on that document I gave you, 6 schools prefer calendar 1, 2 schools prefer calendar 2. Although some of the students, so that all is on the table, a lot of the schools that would have liked draft 1 also said we're not real happy with the 25th.
Yeah.
But
Dick?
Chuck, just a couple of observations. Is there a draft 3? Is that the one that's labeled as draft 1?
Draft through, so the third is not this year, it's the following year, it's the 24-25 school year. Because we had, as a group, we
Oh,
decided
sorry,
we wanted to do 2
okay,
years.
Thank you.
I did have only one school commented on that, well, a couple of schools commented on 24-25. But the one comment was, it's too early for us to do a 24-25. However, there was reasons for that around international ed, around, staff, especially we talked about parents, nurseries. They need to be planning their own holidays, and they were appreciating a calendar for 2 years.
But this one doesn't have the full week off.
No.
I don't like that.
And the reason for that, Kathy, just so you're aware, it's that one we're really starting to move towards. That one I chose to start after long. So every year, of course, we get, it gets closer to, that September being early in September. So that's the reason for that. So there's 3 days there, not 5.
I think people won't like that.
Yeah.
I know.
And then that's right. Yeah.
There's always gonna be people who don't like that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Do you feel, Mr. Hammond, do we need to approve the 24-25 today?
It helps us because of international ed, getting that out. It helps us because we have lots of parents saying, what are you doing? Now, do we have to? No, but we've heard a lot of input from parents that it would be nice, and the international ed would like it also.
It is nice too, from like us heading into February registration to show the next 2 years. Like I know in Calgary, lots of times they have a 3-year calendar, and I'm not saying we need to go that far, but it does help with our promotion and stuff too, to say like, this is what next year looks like and the year after. And I don't know, just heard a lot of feedback that having that further in advance, and I get a ton of phone calls saying, do you have any idea? Because I have to book a lot of these nurses and people working in healthcare have to book so far for holidays. So yeah, that's kind of part of the reason.
Go ahead, David.
I know within the last week, the Alberta School Trustees Association sends out that daily thing with news stories.
Yeah.
It was interesting to read in there that either Calgary Catholic or Calgary Public, A, they're doing away with some of their year-round programming, and B, they're instituting the week off in November. So it's,
The schools love it. I think if we pass that, we're gonna be in trouble.
For the 24-25?
Yeah.
So are you suggesting, Kathy, forgive me, but are you suggesting starting in August in that year also?
I
And
think people would rather, just what I have talked to teachers, they would rather, because they've had the break in the summertime, they would under duress come back earlier in August than lose that November. They would give that up.
And really, the only reason I did it that way is because every year,
No, this works out
One day early,
perfectly, yeah.
that's the only reason.
But can we start earlier in August than the 26th?
Yeah, which draft are you looking at?
Oh, I'm sorry, the 24-25 draft.
This is a draft. Yes, we can start wherever you guys want.
We're not in violation of anything with our collective agreement for that?
We can't go more than 7 days. This is the only thing in August. So.
7 teaching days.
Nope, 7 total days.
7 calendar days.
Yes.
So what's the earliest we could start in August?
On the 24-25 calendar?
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't need 4 days there, right?
We just
We
need
would
2.
need 3.
I would have to start probably the 29th, 30th, perhaps those 2 days. That would give me my 3 days up
Right.
front that I would like to see as my minimum.
But the kids would be in the 29th and 30th, and the
If-
teachers would
if
be in the
that's-
26th. Yeah.
Yes.
That would be my
I would
preference.
want to
but
count
that's-
days again there, but I
Yeah.
can probably make it work just because when I look down below, semester 1 has 90 days in that count, so that would add me 2 days.
But we're taking away 2 here
Right,
and
that's
adding
true.
2 there,
Yeah,
so
it
we're
would work out
not
close. Yeah,
doing
so we just
anything.
do that switch
Yeah.
wouldn't be hard to do. Just again, The other two things that came out of all my feedback was match 76 start after the long weekend. So there was
Absolutely,
three
but,
main things there.
yeah, but I think the November break trumps the long weekend. If you're playing. Go ahead, Bernie.
Madam Chair, yeah, so my comment with regard to the calendar is, yes, teachers have expressed to me that they like that November break, and that seems a very positive thing. My only concern with the first draft is.
The first draft of 23, 24.
Yeah.
Okay.
Draft number 1 is with the 25th, it's that a speaker is kind of determining our start date. And while I recognize the speaker, and I think this is the speaker, I think it is very entertaining. Staff would enjoy it very much. It's just, I just personally have an issue with someone outside determining our start date. Apart from that, the second draft, I like the fact that instructional days are balanced between the semesters. But I look at 5 PD days to start the year as a lot. And that's kind of concerning. And, maybe I don't know if we need them all. Yes, it'd be nice to have them all, but we could go with 4, I think, easily.
Right, so the only reason I chose, I put 25th in there because I knew that was gonna be a bit of an issue. For me, again, this is only me, 3 days prior to students is kind of a minimum, because otherwise it causes us problems. And there's costs involved. So that's why the 25th is there. And 5 days, yeah, it front loads, and we have talked about front loading in the past, that's why that's there, that's all.
But we would have enough days if we switched those two, right?
If on
The
the
two-
20, the
yeah.
24, 25,
Yeah, the 2 instructional days in November to
Then
2
I did-
instructional days in August.
if the board were to decide that they, in the 24, 25 draft, if the board were to decide, and I want to do the numbers on this, but it looks pretty clear to me, if the first day for students would be the 29th, I would
Yeah.
just move those 2 days then to November and
14th and 15th.
and then we would go.
That would be my choice. David?
Sorry, I just. On draft. Number. Do we have any alternative dates for, is it Father or Brother Leo?
Father,
Father Leo and the bishop?
I wanted to wait and see, so I haven't, I'm sure the bishop might be a little bit trickier, but again, that's okay, and we can. I haven't investigated that yet,
Okay,
Where is he from?
Baltimore.
Oh,
is he coming in to like daisy chain some of the districts, like he's with
I
another
had-
district and then ours and then?
I had shared that with our colleagues, so there was a few looking into it, but that being said, I appreciate it's not something that can't be changed, I'm sure.
I'm comfortable with it. In an ideal world, we wouldn't be doing anything in that week, in my mind. However, some of this is give and take, right? I think. I hope. And,
well, that's why I said I think November, the week in November would trump
yes.
beginning after the holidays. Dwayne?
One of the things that we had briefly talked about for draft number 2, if we wanted to have the later start and as well have that week, is to look at the other PD days that are in the first semester and condense them into that week. So we could be moving. Now you're going to be without PD days there, but it hadn't been something that we decided to do because it's sort of, but there is potential there as well with at least some of the days to move them into that week.
Sorry, okay, just to add on to Dwayne, so I put that in a possible change, we could pull some days and move them. That's a possibility for sure, I put that in there as a possible change.
David?
As it stands now, I would support draft 1. And
Of 22, 20, or
Yes,
23,
thank you very
24.
much. 23, 23, 24.
Okay, draft one, yeah.
And then I would not, I don't like, I would like to see a full November week off in draft one for the 24, 25.
Yeah, me too. Dick, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Chuck, what happened on draft one of 23, 24? What happens on the 30th and 31st of August?
That's students, that's instructional days.
Those are instructional days. But do we have the 3 days we need for staff?
I have the 25th, 28th, and 29th. Those are the 3 days.
But the 25th is going to be the big day.
That's
It's
one of
still
the days.
within the
That's one of
7.
days. So I counted faith days being one that I would like to see early. Then there's one for administrators with us, with Dwayne and Huey and like our team. And then there's one for principals to be in with their schools doing their first staff meeting day. So that's, to me, that's the minimum. Again, that's just my opinion. That's the minimum.
Dwayne?
Yeah, I guess the one thing for the board to consider, and I think Kathy will share the same, is that from the parent council association and so on, the start after the long weekend is really sort of the number one issue for them. Parents, for the most part, don't like the November break, and so it may be something that we look at trying to balance, because if 76 in particular starts after the long weekend, it may turn into a registration issue for us, for the ones who aren't necessarily committed to the division to begin with.
David?
I don't understand what you mean there, Dr. Zarichny. If you could flesh that out a bit more.
Well, just the feedback from the parents, I think every time we've met with them since I've been here, they always want us to start after the long weekend. And I think it hasn't been an issue for us overall because 76 hasn't started after the long weekend either. But if they come out next month with their calendar and they're having a after the long weekend start, it may influence some choices, and that's not necessarily the reason why we pick a calendar or not, but it's just a factor to think about.
David, and then Bernie.
It's a non-factor to me.
Bernie?
Madam Chairman, just for Mr. Hellman, if you could give me some more clarification. You said in draft 2 that it was possible to move 2 of those PD days at the beginning,
Or one, or.
but
so-
where would they go into the November?
So potentially then, I would take the December 22nd, turn that into an instructional day and move it to the 8th, for example, right?
Okay.
Potentially, I would take maybe the January 26th day and move it to another day in November. Then those
Could
would
you
be
take one of
instructional
these?
days.
Because you actually have 5 then.
If I take one of those though, what I'm trying to do is make more instructional days is what I'm trying to do. So,
Oh, right.
so that's what I would do. I would take a present, in that scenario where I said we could change it, I would take a PD day, turn it into instructional day and move that PD day over into November. It's kind of what I would do. That was kind of what I was thinking, if that's something the board wanted me to do. So the follow to that is, for example, is November, you have your break in November, and then staffs don't get together potentially until January 26th, or potentially down into February, or potentially, because those are convention days, potentially down to the 15th.
Yeah,
So
there's,
that's teachers and we'll have something to say about that, no doubt.
there's 2 PD days in January plus a week off.
So I'll just tell you about that. The 26th is for grades K through 9, our elementary and middle schools.
Oh,
What the high school does on the 31st in that calendar, that's the day that they'll bring all their grade 9s up. So it
Oh,
works
so
well
that-
because the
yes,
grade
it
9s are all in
absolutely-
school, and the high school has time then to bring, and with their full staff to bring everybody in.
this here is This is a Saturday.
That's the 11th. That's November 11th, that's Remembrance Day.
I know, but,
And so that's why the 10th is there, we have to meet that day.
okay.
Just as a point of clarification. So I'm not sure, were you trying in the second draft to get the full week in November? No,
No,
no, okay, because I was gonna say, I don't think you've accomplished it.
No, I didn't even try because I knew that it was gonna be very difficult to do both.
draft 2 was starting after the long weekend, right?
Right. That
Draft
that
1 was
the-
the November thing.
Right.
David, go ahead.
Why can't we I'm in favor of draft. Why can't we on draft 2, bare minimum 3 days, say the first day for teachers is the 30th?
The only piece there, we're down to 195 days then, which is neither here nor there, that's a board decision.
Yeah, I could. Bottom line, the research says that it's not so much, the amount of instructional time isn't a direct correlation to student success. It's the quality of the teaching. Like, we could do all kinds of reading about jurisdictions that have unbelievable amount of instructional time, but the results aren't very good. So that's whether it's, that's not a big issue with me.
Bernie?
And then, sorry, yeah.
No, go ahead, continue. I was just gonna say that I would agree with Trustee Leahy. Like, we already have in that second draft 15 PD days. And that doesn't affect really a large part of instructional time. If we really wanted more instructional time, we could go back to something we did a long time ago where we had early dismissal at noon, and we could have shortened classes or whatever and increase our instructional time as well. I had looked at that and I was wondering why we're doing 5 in August and the 1st of September included. Yeah, it's just, it's always difficult to get a calendar to work, that's for
For
sure.
sure. And I guess the only reason I put 5 in there is because of the discussion we had around this table about doing a bit more final. We could do SIVA, we could do a number of things that wouldn't cost us later on. That's all.
And cliche time, you're not gonna please it.
No, absolutely not.
So are we voting on this tonight? Today?
That's the hope. Because
Yes.
the February is coming soon.
David, go ahead.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to move that the Board of Trustees for the Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education approve the school year calendar for 2023-24 as presented in draft 1 for 2023-24.
Okay. And is that all you're gonna,
That's all I'm not gonna make anything about 2014.
Based on your feedback from parents, if we were to wait for the 24, 25 till next month, that,
Yeah, like, if you guys are thinking that you want some more input
yeah, I
on the
think,
24, 25, I think it was.
I think we
would be
need some more.
beneficial if we maybe did in February or March, if you guys are still open to that, so we could kind of still pass the 2 years, but we could wait a month or two,
so
if
Kathy,
you're okay.
perhaps Kathy, I'll put together another draft then, and that draft
Perfect.
we'll do full November.
yes, yeah, I would like that. All right, so Mr. Leahy has moved that we accept draft number 1 for 23-24. And we'll put the other year ahead for table, that's the word I'm trying to find. Okay, so on the motion for draft 1, 23-24, all in favor? Opposed? 1, passed. And we will table 24-25, and Mr. Hellman has said he would give us another choice. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for all your work on this, Chuck. That's huge.
Madam Chair, just a
Yes,
question regarding 24, 25.
okay.
That additional choice would include moving the faith day to the 29th and adding that day to the November week, and scrounging up another day from somewhere else. Is that?
No, that would include, go to November, and that whole week, 14th and 15th would be off.
Yep.
And then the 29th is when the kids would start, the 29th of August.
Yeah, that's what I said.
So we're flipping 2 instructional days for 2 non-instructional days.
That's what I meant to
So I'll
say.
give you,
Okay.
so basically I'll do the same thing. I'll give 2 drafts. One will have a full November break and one won't. And then I'll let you guys.
Madam Chair, I move to table the calendar for 24, 25.
All in favor? Okay. Yes,
Just-
David.
Mr. Hellman, are you comfortable bringing us, now let me put it this way, will you send out for some more feedback, your new drafts for 24, 25
To everyone or just to you?
to everyone?
I have no problem.
Okay, thank you. Excellent.
Great, thank you. All right, we're going to move on. Mr. McPherson, budget assumptions.
Thank you. So in the agenda package is the 23-24 budget assumptions, which is part of the process that we have with developing the budget. We've developed the draft budget assumptions, and those are attached. Much of this is consistent with the prior year in terms of what we're looking for within the budget development. The overarching major areas are dealing with ensuring there's a minimum of $600,000 in the unrestricted reserve as of August 31st, 2024. The use of conservative enrollment forecasts from schools, as well as looking at developing, implementing the deferred camera and swipe card project for buses to be established for the 23-24 year. So if there's any questions or comments around the draft board assumptions, I can.
Okay, David,
Oh, I go first, Mr. Kinch.
Mr. Kinch, just because I'm looking that way.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my first question is point number 1 in the draft assumptions. Why do we have to choose 600,000?
It's based on 5 operational days of expenses. So one of the Auditor General's recommendations is to have 2 to 5% of your expenditures as a minimum.
So that's mandated.
It's not mandated, but it's best practice.
But we could do 500,000.
We could, yes.
Okay, thank you. Couple of points I was just going to ask about. And then it was number 9 was saying certificated staff and support staff under the support staff handbook may be reduced to achieve the required balance. Is that the required balance of 600,000?
To ensure that we have a balanced budget.
So we would still sit on and hold the 600,000, but we may have to reduce staff to do that.
Correct.
Okay, I'm not too pleased to hear that. I'll stop now. Thank you.
David,
Number 6, assume no change to staff covered under the support staff handbook, except for those required under legislation. So when I read that, I'm saying that when we go to prepare the budget, we're just saying, hey, we have this number of staff, and we're just gonna move them over.
The intention here was around salary rates and benefits, so that the budget is assumed
Okay.
based on no salary or benefit adjustments to those, except for those required under legislation. So if employment standards comes up and says this day is now a statutory holiday, we would build that in as part of
So now that I understand now that I understand what you're meaning there, I don't know if it needs to be amended formally or if that could just be a friendly amendment or just that when this comes back out, if that's fleshed out a little bit more. You know, that it would be assumed no change to, but something we,
Sure, no, I understand the comment and I can flush that.
The number 8, certificated staffing to meet required class sizes on a district average within the grade division as determined by the superintendent. I didn't, that must be something new because unless my memory is failing, I didn't know that we had that. I thought the government did away with those and,
So what this is getting at is as Mr. Hellman develops the staffing for the division, he's looking for ensuring that there's equitable staffing as much as reasonably.
So I get that, I just don't understand why certificated staffing to meet required class sizes on a district average within the grade division as determined by the deputy superintendent. I guess I didn't know we were doing that. And I'd like there to be some discussion with the board in determining what those class sizes or district averages should be.
So Mr. Hellman should comment on this.
Yes, so a couple things there then. To Greg's point, we want to try and make things equitable as possible based on knowing that there's a ton of variables out there in terms of school size, class size, and so on and so forth. Another thing to add there is we have a board discussion meeting coming up on the 25th. One of the things we wanted to talk to the board on that day was, what do you like class sizes? What is the board's thoughts, feelings on that?
I'm gonna continue to go down here, but I'm going to say is that this district has been well managed financially, I think, for a very, very long time. That said, I would be more comfortable if there was more discussion about these budget assumptions with the board before they appeared here. I note when I read other divisions' websites and minutes that there are several boards in this province that have a budget subcommittee where the board gives feedback, offers suggestions to administration. This is the first time we're seeing this, and I'm just uncomfortable about that. For instance, number 8, certificated staffing and support staff under the support staff handbook may be reduced to achieve the required balance. I'm going to put any kind of humble nature I have outside the door. When I was superintendent and we faced a financial crisis, do you know where I cut first? Where did I cut first? Central office. Somebody out of maintenance went, and the receptionist went. So it bothers me that here we have certificated staffing and support staff under the support staff handbook may be reduced to achieve the required balance. I think it should say all staffing in all areas of the department of the district will be looked at. This does not send a good message.
The central office that you're referring to would be covered under a support staff handbook, so those staff would be eligible as well.
And then I would still extend it to all staff because there's some people in this office who aren't covered by the support staff handbook. When you have to cut, you have to look at everything. And sometimes what you have to look at is the stuff that's furthest away from the classroom. Number 10, learning services budget to be based on services and supports funding received. That sounds like we're going back to what we had before, and then we had a long discussion here in this room about how we needed to support our students in learning services more. And now what I hear here is that we're going with what the government's allocated. So I'm assuming, am I correct at assuming, 10, that this has all been fleshed out with senior administration?
This has been discussed with senior administration. This is a cut and paste from the previous two budget assumption cycles. So none of this is new. This is what we've been following.
So let me ask again, has central office, has senior administration discussed amongst themselves that all they're going to ask from the board is, in terms of learning services, what money the government gives them, and that there's not going to be any discussion with the board, even though some board members might do it themselves, about subsidizing that?
So this is the starting point for the development of the budget. As we see in every budget cycle, as part of the draft presentation, there could be adjustments. For example, the $600,000 with the unrestricted reserve may not be attainable. So then we adjust that accordingly. As we did this past cycle, the needs within learning services were such that the board graciously allowed for the international ed money to be transferred into that pool. The cameras and swipe cards have been unaffordable, so we've continued to drop that off as part of the budget assumption. So this is the kickoff for starting to develop the budget, and then we refine it as we know what our funding grants are, what our staffing needs are, etc.
I just think that the best practice would be that the budget is kind of a continuous thing that the board is consulted upon, and that whenever budget assumptions are developed, they should be developed beforehand with board input, not after. The budget is approved by the board. The budget is our responsibility. It's one of our oversight responsibilities. And I'm just uncomfortable that there's no board input prior to it being put together. To me, it's kind of similar to the mandate for negotiations. That without some assertiveness, that wouldn't have been really discussed with board members before that had started. I'm uncomfortable with the language in 13, the budget to set aside for senior administrative contact position increases. I'm uncomfortable not that with those words, but there are other sectors in this division that probably should have increases, and those should be in there. Now, I've said a number of things here. I don't know, Madam Chair, what other board members are thinking, or if you want me to propose amendments. But I think there's some work here that needs to be cleared up, at least from this trustee's perspective.
As Mr. Hellman has talked about, we do have the board planning meeting coming up January 25th, that we can, and one of the intentions was to have a budget discussion there, and this information could form part of that discussion.
One other thing that I'll bring up at that meeting is, to return to the distribution of net profit from international education to what was originally approved by the board. That half go to religious ed and half go to the CLC. So, thank you.
Go ahead, Deacon Robbie.
Well, I just want to thank Greg for the work that you're doing, excellent work that you're doing in your department. I was a little, surprised, like when I was going through the assumptions, because I couldn't recall the board being consulted on the assumptions. I'm glad that you clarified that this was cut and paste from years ago. So But I do believe for this fiscal year and future years that we need to have an opportunity to contribute to the assumptions. I believe that I agree with much of what David said. This needs to be amended somewhat, and perhaps we can not make a motion on this today and do that discussion on the upcoming date. So,
On the 25th. Dick?
I just had one question, and it has to do with the budget surplus. How much of a surplus budget do we have to reach that 600,000 minimum? In other words, what have we got under right now?
The forecasted year-end unrestricted reserve is expected to be 433,000. So
It's not much. 150,000 probably.
give or take to get the whole budget.
Bernie, did you have anything else to add?
Well, I do, but I think since we tabled this, it can wait for the 25th.
To the
of January
25th,
for
yeah, I'm
discussion.
good with that too. We did want to add to number 13 though, didn't we? And put support staff in there?
Well,
we can.
Or we can do that on the 25th? Okay, go ahead, David.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that the approval of the budget assumptions for 2023-24 be tabled until February,
Okay,
regular board meeting.
all in favor? All right. Okay, school fees, Mr. McPherson.
Thank you. This too shows up on the board work plan, and it's to inform the Board of Trustees that the review of the school fees has begun, and we are working with the school principals for determination whether any school fee changes will have to be made. And we'll have the draft 23-24 school fees ready for approval at the March board meeting.
Okay. Any questions of Greg for the school fees? Just gotta get down here to them. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
The next item as part of the board work plan is regards to the boundary review and attendance areas, and this shows up on the board work plan. And we have looked at the modification of boundaries and attendance areas, and administration does not have any recommendations for boundary adjustments. So the board typically would approve any changes for March 31st or on or before March 31st. So there's no recommendations for changes at this for this year.
Is that 4x4 under here or that's different?
The 4x4 would potentially be different, but until we know what's happening with that, there's no need for any change.
Okay.
So and we won't know that before the end of April.
Okay. All right, any questions for Greg on that boundary review? All right, we'll move on to the 22-23 infrastructure maintenance and renewal plan.
Thank you. So within the board work plan, the board is approving the IMR plan, or the infrastructure maintenance renewal plan. We have just about $1.7 million available from the IMR grant for 22-23. Of that, we have a plan for $1.27 million worth of spending, which includes $863,000 on projects in progress, as well as $354,000 on new projects. And those projects are outlined within the package itself. Within the plan, We also have reserved, based on the board's request, $300,000 for the SCSL project for the potential classroom conversion. So those funds are earmarked for that if needed. We are earmarking $40,000 for insurance deductibles, and that's based on potentially two major events happening within a year. And that's just to ensure we have funds left over to deal with any insurance loss. We are putting money aside for the St. Mary's change room washrooms, the conversion there. It's estimated that that will be in excess of $500,000. So we've reserved $82,000 out of the IMR funds for that project. It is a high priority project, but maybe subjected based on the outcome of the division consolidation project. So depending what happens with the new school, but we want to start putting funds away for that, so it's available. And we're ensuring that we have $50,000 left aside for any emergent needs that come up throughout the year. I think Mr. Lee.
David had a question.
500, could you tell me what's planned for those change rooms at St. Mary's that's gonna cost $500,000?
So there's a combination of the boys' washroom, girls' washroom, and the two change rooms. So looking at combining them, making them larger and more functional. We've had discussions with the previous principal there as well as the current principal. All parties are in agreement that the way that the change rooms are currently configured are not optimal. So there's work there as a result of that modernization. There could be a fire suppression aspect that could be expensive. So we're ensuring that funds are available to deal with that as well. So that section of the school would have to become sprinklered, in other words.
So what are the concerns that administration has there about those change rooms?
They're not useful. So the way they're structured isn't allowing for good use of those change rooms as well as the washrooms. So there's some thought process that readjusting and realigning how those washrooms are used will result in a better use of the room. The actual details in terms of the actual design, once we get to that stage, will be drawn. And so
I'm just going back to my experience as the principal of St. Mary's. You go into the girls, it's basically like a lot of locker rooms. It's a square.
Yeah.
And
but there's some showers in there which the students aren't using, which we could redeploy that to free up space, put in some good modern washroom facility. The washrooms there currently are antiquated and need to be modernized.
there's some washrooms off the back wall.
Yep.
Of that.
Yeah, so we think there's an opportunity to expand that so it becomes a larger, more functional room rather than just two distinct rooms itself.
The price tag surprises me.
It is expensive, as we saw with the washroom modernizations at St. Francis as well as St. Michael's School. These projects are expensive, and then adding on the fire suppression issue, that becomes an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this IMR plan? Go ahead.
These the floor replacements at Notre Dame, are they on modular classrooms?
No, that's with you may recall the walls at Notre Dame Academy were coming off the foundation. So the work in order to stabilize the foundation as well as those walls necessitated some trenching through some classrooms. So this money is meant to repair the flooring from that trenching.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for all your work.
So the motion would be that the Board of Trustees for the Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education approve the 22-23 IMR plan as presented.
Can I have somebody make that motion? Robert? And all in favor? Pass. And it's you again, Mr. McPherson.
So this is the CMR plan, or the capital maintenance renewal. This is the new fund that the government is providing. And we have some very defined aspects around that. So we currently have just over $300,000 available from the CMR grant within 22-23. The CMR plan has $154,000 of proposed spending. The funding is provided on a government fiscal year basis rather than a school year basis. So that's something we have to look at behind the scenes. This plan will have $149,000 carried forward to the 23-24 plan. The CMR funding may only be used to support capital expenditures rather than expenses, so that they have to be capitalized. And the projects have to be previously approved by Alberta Education. So there was a list of projects that they've approved, and we can just pick them off as needed. So the 22-23 plan has four major areas. One is the replacement of the mechanical systems at the St. Patrick's Modular, and then three projects at Mother Teresa School. One is the installation of an asphalt court, installation of a barrier-free entrance, and then looking at the flexible paving and parking lots of the staff parking at Mother Teresa. There's some challenges we have there, and we think we can help fix that.
What's flexible paving?
Well, the flexible use of
Okay.
parking lots. So
Okay.
we're hoping by looking at some of the expansion, some additional paving, we can free up some parking spots.
David?
Have we ever considered purchasing, which may be expensive, but gates for that loop in front of St. Patrick's that are, controlled in such a way that before school, the only way they open is, I don't know what happened. Somebody's got a clicker, there's a code. The only way that goes up is when a bus comes. Because I know there's safety concerns, not just there, but in other schools. But
Yeah.
that's the one that's got that loop and
So has this been considered? No, but as you say this, the project has all sorts of neat ideas going off in my head. So that's something we can look at.
have we ever asked our OH&S person or another expert to, and I appreciate, once again, we've done a very good job over the decades in this district of maintaining our buildings. And so that's two things. Having OH&S or some other person examine the parking situation at our schools, give us some recommendations for safety. Having personal experience and reading school newsletters, there's at least 3 schools that every month have a message for parents. Please do not go in this parking lot because it's a safety issue. And I know Mother Teresa, it was an issue. So to me, it would be interesting if we have somebody look and say, listen, if you put the gates on the staff parking lots, or like you go to St. Louis, they have pylons out. I know in Mother Teresa for a while they had pylons out. Anyway, I'd just be interested.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's something we can explore.
I think too, on that same thing, we have to look at the drop off and the pickup of buses and parents. Because, and mine is just a personal thing at John Paul, when I drop Max off in the morning, sometimes he's taken his life in his own hands to get out of the car and get into the school. Like, their buses all park along here, and on this side of the street, it's all driveways. And it's impossible to pick them up or drop them off. It's like, even if we could somehow make a bus route through the schoolyard, kind of like what Crestwood School has. They have a lane up by the school, and only the buses can go there. It's like St. Pat's, but it's bigger than St. Pat's, and it needs to be bigger than St. Pat's. I don't know if we can ever look at that, or we can, because it's dangerous. It's really dangerous.
Excellent ideas.
Anyway,
Costs money,
I know it costs money, but
Yeah,
but one kid gets hit, it's worth
I agree with
every
you.
dollar we got.
I agree.
All right,
So the motion for this, if the trustees are
Yep.
amenable, is that the Board of Trustees for the Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education approve the 22-23 CMR plan as presented.
can I have somebody move that, please? Mr. Kinch, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks again, Greg, for all your work. Information items, I don't think. Oh yeah, strategic priorities update, Dr. Zurich.
Chair, the strategic priorities update is attached, and I'm prepared to answer any questions that trustees may have. It's been a short while since the last update, so there's not a lot of extra bullets on this one, but
Yeah, I looked at, I'm fine with it. Everybody? I really like how this is done every month. It's quick and easy to look at. So we're good with that? Okay, first quarter financial update, Mr. McPherson.
Thank you. So there's two reports attached. One, the first is the actuals as of November 30th, and the second report is the adjusted projection for the year. So when we look at the first report dealing with the actuals, we've received 31% of the revenue up to the end of the first quarter. So that's from September through the end of November. The majority of the revenue is received from Alberta Education, evenly over for the year. However, we are seeing increased revenue collection early on, predominantly through the international fees and other fees being collected at the start of the school year, which are fairly sizable. There were several grants which weren't included within the budget because they weren't announced until after the board had approved the budget. Things like the learning loss grant of $25,000, supplemental enrollment growth of $161,000, support for Ukrainian students of $33,000, and teacher salary settlement of $61,000. And then there were several grants that were put in as deferred revenue at the end of the last year, and those are coming in as revenue for the current year. So things like the two curriculum implementation grants of $120,000 combined. There was a mental health grant of $25,000 from the Medicine Hat College, which went into Hugh's budget, and then the Safe Indoor Air grant of almost $50,000. On the expenditure side, we have 28.1% of expenses incurred as of the end of the first quarter. When we break that down, 73.5% of the expenses are budgeted to wages, and that first quarter, 25.39% of wages have been recognized. So we're on target for where we need to be. The capital and IMR expenses are also not cyclical, and that's based on the timing. So right now, 55.7% of capital expenditures have been recognized, and a lot of that is from the year-end projects being completed after September 1st. So those expenses are getting recognized early, or early within the school year. So from an actual point of numbers, we're doing very, very well. But what's probably more important for the trustees is the projection. So when we look at the second report, which is the projection, if you go to page 2, which is the summary, our revenue is up $863,000, which means our total revenue is projected to be $36.1 million. Our expenditures are up $1.1 million, which means our total expenditures are forecasted to be $36.4 million. The net result is the deficit is up $286,000, which means our total deficit is projected to be $315,000, which can be fully funded through our existing reserves. So the breakdown of this is on pages 12 and 13, which deal with the revenue side. So as we previously discussed, the teacher salary settlement was $244,000, and those funds have been received after the budget was approved and are now included as part of our projection. Our September 29th enrollment numbers were up from what our budget was. So we were up 30.5 FTE, which translates to $109,000 of additional revenue. We've received the curriculum implementation funding of $128,000, the federal Safe Air grant, which was transferred from deferred revenue of almost $50,000. There was a new grant for supplemental enrollment growth, which is $161,000, and we received that because our enrollment growth was in excess of 5% over the past year. So we're very grateful to the government for this additional funding. Fuel price contingency funding. So as we all see when we fill up our vehicles, the price of fuel is high, and we're receiving additional funding to help offset those costs of school busing. So based on October and November, we've received $15,000 of additional fuel costs. Ukrainian students, we are projecting funding of $22,000. The learning loss funding, $25,000, which was a new grant announced. Low incidence supports and services, which again, a new grant of $18,000. Alberta Health Services provided our Communities Coming Together contract with an uplift, which was almost $6,000. The Alberta School Council Engagement Grant, that was $4,500. As a result of our teacher adjustments, our teacher pension funding increased by $57,000. And there was the donation for learning services of $25,000 from the Medicine College. So all combined, that accounts for the increased revenue within our budget. Now, each one of these increased revenues also has an associated expense associated with that. So the summary of those expenses is on pages 8 to 11. But very specifically, when we look at the instructional staff pool, those are on pages 20 and 21. The average teacher cost decreased $198 per FTE before the effects of this salary increase. So that resulted in a savings of $42,000. Our teacher staff complement was an increase of 1.6 FTE from budget. So we're now sitting at 142.85 FTE, and that's an increased cost of $198,000. And there's two major drivers there. One is the 1.0 FTE teacher increase at St. Patrick's School and a 0.6 FTE with adjustments in other schools. The teacher salary increase from collective bargaining, that's the 0.5% plus the 1.25%, which is an effective increase of 1.756%. That resulted in an increase of $253,000 to expenditures. And then, of course, we have the increased pension costs of $57,000. There was a reallocation from SBDM, so the school budget, to the instructional staff pool of 1.0 FTE. It's being picked up by the instructional staff pool now rather than through the outreach school. And that's an increased cost to the instructional staff pool of $66,000. There was savings of the second VP at Monsignor of $12,000. The division administration time, so there was, we transferred some of the administrative costs that are dealings very specifically with instructional supervision. And that's an increased cost to the instructional staff pool of $70,000, but it's offset with a savings in the board and system administration of an identical amount.
Do you
And
want a question now, or?
I just have one more
Okay.
comment. The chaplain total cost has increased by $11,000 from budget. Trustee Leahy, there was a question.
So my question is, what I hear you saying is that you charge to the instructional budget $70,000 of a person's salary here in the board office that you're saying is in charge of supervising instructional staff?
I think that's fair. And whether they're supervising instructional staff directly or involved in the supervision of staff, in addition to other responsibilities that person would have on the instructional side. So curriculum, implementation, those types of things.
Yeah. And so what I also heard you say is that resulted in a reduction in the charge off to administration of equivalent amount.
Exactly.
Yeah. How are we doing in the administration part of our budget?
There's a surplus. If we go down, and this is outlined in detail on page 17, Thought Exchange, that was a $25,000 hit. Now we split that with 10% to administration, 90% to instruction. There was an increase to trustee honoraria. There was obviously the reduced division admin time. However, there were some staff cost increases, which translated to $39,000. And our enterprise resource system, we brought in a consultant to help with some of the changes because of the staffing changes that we had within the office. So that's $3,000. But there was a net overall reduction to our total admin spending of $24,000 from budget.
How close are we to the limit?
So we have $24,000 is how close we are to that limit. So we're below that limit by 24,000.
Why did we make this change now when in previous years it's never happened?
It was something that I guess we hadn't really considered, and then the effects of the new curriculum coming in, we started to look at how much time people were actually spending on non-central office aspects.
So helping schools adapt to the changes in the curriculum is not is not a central office duty?
Well, I might have said that, but that's when it's put back to me in those words, it sounds wrong.
Yeah.
But we're trying to assign costs and expenses to the area to which they're predominantly related. So if we're helping develop teachers, then those costs should come through instruction.
I'm obviously,
Rather than through the HR component, if this is more of an instructional supervision component, then to me, it would be more appropriate to come through the instructional staff pool.
I'm uncomfortable because that's $70,000 that could be in the instructional pool to hire people who are, I just remember when I became the acting superintendent, and the board asked me to put together a central office review. And I forget the name of the gentleman who did the review. And he came down and he said, depending on how you allocate and whatever, you can charge off central office duties to the instructional pool and still increase your central office staff. Not saying that's happening here, but I'm saying to me that's a worry. I have difficulties charging a position here in central office without naming the position to the instructional fund. I would like to see how much time is being spent with people on introduction of the curriculum. I would like to see how much time is being spent supervising instructional staff to warrant moving that from one place to another. It's my understanding that OH&S supervision last year was charged off to this position. Is that correct?
Correct, and that OHS component now is coming out of the POM budget,
So it's coming off it's coming off the POM budget.
which is where it historically has come from. But when we, as part of the cost savings measures, didn't replace the OHS officer and move those duties to another individual, that component of OHS is now being charged to POM.
Bottom line, I'd like to know that the money that's being charged to instructional is being used by instructional. And it's just not a accounting thing. Because that's $70,000. So I sitting here, and if it's curriculum, like, okay, like I had this meeting, I've done this, I've done that. That's at least a third. Yeah,
Sure.
and perhaps I'd be interested in seeing a chart that says all these central office positions, X amount of the position is being charged off to this budget center. Bottom line, this division operated for many years, having a deputy superintendent or whatever, where none of this money was charged to instructional. And things changed, but I'm just uncomfortable seeing that. I don't know, Mr. Christian, if you had anything more, because I did have some other questions.
Sure, I can take those questions if you wish.
The administration budget, what page is that on again?
On page 17.
I'm seeing all these things at the top. Preschool administration, what does that mean?
So those are the 5% funds that we charge to preschool, as well as to international ed for the provision of services to those groups. So whether it's payroll, whether it's accounting.
So let me get that straight. You're telling me that in order for preschool and international education to operate, the central office is charging them 5% in order to help payroll and stuff like that.
To cover the overhead costs. Yes.
This is now, I'm getting more concerned now as I hear this. This is reminding me of a situation that occurred in our district a long, long time ago. And it had to do with maintenance costs. And the principals were saying what would happen is that it was like a double bill. You know, I'd like this piece of equipment, you know, to be built, and then there would be a charge for that, plus there'd be another charge for the central office to look after it, kind of thing. And we were saying, well, if there's a maintenance budget, there's a maintenance budget, right? And then you do it. There shouldn't be another charge on top of it. So what we're saying there is we're going to hire somebody to do payroll, but we're going to charge off that salary 5% every time. It's like they're a branch office, kind of. You know, you're going to charge you in order for that person to do their job.
So I think another way to look at this is the grant that we get to run this office is $1.5 million. Some of the programs that we help support and run are, for example, the preschool and international ed require significant amount of administrative time, whether it's from the superintendent involvement, my involvement, or my staff's involvement. So there's costs associated to that, whether they're opportunity costs or direct costs, that we're clawing those amounts out of those programs to represent that 5% overhead related to the provision of those services, whether they're supervision or accounting.
I wonder what those centers could do without having to pay that 5%. That person would still be sitting there, correct?
But we could use them in a variety of different opportunities, which would help the division.
Bernie.
Madam Chair, to kind of dovetail on what Trustee Leahy's saying, yeah, I try and approach things from a very simplistic point of view, and I go, we're charging ourselves to do our own jobs, is what it sounds like to me. And that we have people who are hired and have positions, and their job is to do their job. Now, if we have other activities that occur in their job, they get more stuff to do, we shouldn't be charging extra for them to do it. I don't know, it seems somewhat odd that we are cost valuing our own work. But
And
What?
I'd like to know where that money's been allocated from. I'd like to see, okay, and this year, this is how much central office had, and so on, because, you know, preschool administration, $23,500 is being charged for people in this office to do work for preschool administration. $33,128 is being charged in this central office to do administration for international ed. But then if you look down at the international ed budget, there's close to $500,000 already being spent there. To me, it's starting to look like a bit of a double dip. There's people who are hired here to be HR. Okay, BHR. And there's X number of dollars funded by the government to do it. And so what happens, I'm assuming, is because this, $56,000, and because we're only 20,000 sold, that money's been spent somewhere else. Where has it been spent and what on? And so we have these things up top, net administration allocation, and then down below is another list, right? So that, how much of that 1,636,221 is part of that next expenses thing, or are those,
So the top number, the 1.6 million dollars represents the allocation for the board and system administration, which an equivalent would be, that's the revenue. The total expenditures are 1.60, so there's an unallocated or a surplus, so to speak, of almost $26,000 within the administration budget.
there's a surplus of, could you say that again?
About 26,000.
Yeah. Based on the way you're charging stuff out here.
Correct.
Why is that few items there highlighted in gold?
So those are allocations. So one of the things we started to do is to say there's a custodial allocation here. So for the use of the custodian is almost $9,000. For insurance for the building, as well as for liability insurance, was $4,500, and for utilities $5,500. So as we're taking on the full cost of running this operation, we're also getting the full amount of income coming in as well.
Under contracted services, I see contracted services evaluation, $8,000. There wasn't anything in the budget for 21-22. So may I ask what that expenditure is for under evaluation?
So when the budget was set up, we didn't put any monies aside for, what we did was moved the superintendent amount. So within the budget, there was $10,000. So we moved $8,000 from that budget line to the evaluation line. So it's very clear that when we did the board and superintendent evaluation, the contractor was $8,000. So it's just a budget line transfer. It's not new money.
So I don't understand why it couldn't still remain in the superintendent evaluation.
It was just to make it clear for me how much money was left within that one budget center.
Meeting expenses, that is for DLT?
It's for any meeting expense. So if the board's meeting and we bring in meals, then that's a cost.
Madam Chair, I don't know if you want a motion or if I can just ask that on January 25th, this whole issue of charging budget centers for costs be on the agenda. I would also like to request, just like we are able to see from year to year how much staff is at a school, I wouldn't mind seeing one trustee 5 years of comparison of how many staff work in this building versus going back X number of years. I'd like to know when we started this, thing of charging, off. So I guess I'd like to see all the programs that are charged off a percentage when the money comes into this office.
Easy.
Okay. Do we want that for next month or for January 20?
January 25th.
Okay.
And I
Okay, any other questions on this? Okay, Greg, did you have any more to say?
I'm willing to take more questions if anyone has them.
No, doesn't look like it.
This first quarter update, that is what we just received today, correct?
Correct. I didn't submit it with my board agenda package, so I apologize for that oversight.
I may ask that it be on the agenda again next month, because I haven't had a lot of time to look through it. Thank you.
Yep, you can do
That's a
that.
good idea.
Okay, communications report. Do you?
Okay, yes, so unfortunately Tiana was not unable to be here this evening, so I will kind of present her report a little bit as best as I can. So we've been working hard for the last couple of months to get ready for February registration. Started November and think it's far away, but it comes quicker than you think. So Tiana spent a lot of time going into each of the schools, getting some new photos, getting some video footage. The last couple of years, we've had a lot of mask footage and a lot of different things just with COVID. We're trying to get some updated. And as you probably know, we always use our own students in all of our promotional products. We don't like to use stock images for anything. So she's been getting some different photos and videos. She made little videos for St. Michael's, St. Francis, and St. Louis that she has promoted for them. You'll see some examples of some billboards that you may have already seen around town that have started going up over the Christmas break. All the magnet signs have been booked and they're starting to show up at the schools, and all the signage on those will be up within the next week or so for the February registration. She's created registration packages and worked with all the schools to create posts specifically for their schools to promote them in their unique kind of way for each of them. She's booked some, St. Mary's has asked her to do some little mini doc videos on a couple of their programs and teachers in particular. So a little bit on their athletics, one on their French, and also one on their arts program. So she's working in that in January, and that'll be coming out in the spring to do a little bit of like mini documentaries. We're also looking at the St. Francis program. Derek Whitson up there has a lot of contacts in the community and has signed or came to an agreement with the college that their academy is using the college as a home base and that too. So they're doing a lot of programming over there, and it's getting a lot of interest in the community and that sort of thing. So we're looking at doing a feature on that promotion with the college as well. So that'll be coming out end of the month or into February. Yeah, so our official launch is going to be February 1st. There are a lot of social media posts that are scheduled basically about the division and about each of the schools that you'll be seeing hopefully pop up all over your social media in the next few weeks. And Annalise has everything kind of getting ready on her end so that all gets launched from the Power School side. And yeah, I think that's kind of overall kind of where we're at with how we're doing that launch. She did put a couple of analytics in there. I'm not the best person with those. I know Robert had asked last month about that, and I think she would have liked to explain a little bit more of the background on those. I'm hoping to for February when she's back. There'll be a lot of reach in different areas because we're doing a lot of promotion for February registration, so maybe we can highlight some of the different posts that got the most.
I had trouble getting into those analytics.
Okay, so I'll let her she may have permissions on some certain things that she'd have to let.
Yeah,
in,
it's
so
something you
maybe
need
I'll
access
talk to
for,
her.
and I couldn't,
Okay, I'll talk to her about that for sure.
I got a comment.
Sure.
So, sounds like she's really busy, so that's great. So I was happy to see that she had the analytics report. As Kathy mentioned, it was difficult to get in.
Okay.
She had to, I went in and she had to respond to give me permission to see the analytics.
Okay.
So what I, may suggest that
and the videos too, you can't.
that be put on a hard copy that we could just look at, because it wasn't a lot of information.
Or even just a link of
Like,
some
yeah,
kind, yeah.
like a hard copy we can link to, like you do, different aspects of our board package.
Okay.
What I would like to see moving forward is to have some sort of like month graph, the metrics that she's presenting monthly. And then we can look for, over the course of a year or two, we can look at trends possibly, and just to see, the impact. From the analytics that I looked at, basically what it said was the views are down, but the engagement is up. Meaning there's more comments and stuff, but the views are down.
It's really tricky because analytics are really difficult when you're not a paid business, right? Because we can put out tons of stuff that says, click here, we'll give you a prize, or if you do this and share this, we're gonna give you this. But we want actual meaningful engagement. So
Yeah.
we can buy likes, we can buy lots of those kinds of things, but us as a division, we want to make sure we're having engagement with the people that matter to us. So when we're putting out posts and we're putting out paid ads, it's usually for people who like our page and their friends, or for the demographic of usually moms, sometimes the dads, of kids that may be interested in coming to our schools, those kinds of things, right? So when her and I talk about these analytics, like, it is a little bit different than if you're a paid business, right? And that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we can definitely delve into that a little bit more. I will tell you, in the past, when Darian and I have went through this, the most engagement we have is if it is a heartfelt video, or if it's a video of things happening with our division, and when people see their kids, or people see their grandkids. Those are the things that are likely to get shared. So Darian and I, 3 years ago, when I kind of started getting into this with her, that's when we made the big change of no more stock images, fully kids. And it was hard during COVID, but we still made it work. Because we find that if we're showing our real students, people really respond to that. And so even if in these ads where you see up top on the billboards, like, all those are our students. There was some stock images that we had from before, and said, nope, let's go into the schools and take these pictures. People like to see them, right? So just kind of, just an overview, I'd say, like, definitely if you look back at the past few years, those are the engaged ads that we do have, are those ones. And I can get her to delve deeper for sure. And we can look at trends and all those sorts of things, but it kind of just depends on what we're really going for. Like, February will look high, right? Because people will be looking for that information. Beginning of school is also high because we're back to school and it's all that information on there. But yeah, we can definitely look into it further, do some graphing.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments, and I understand that it's complex, but like, from my perspective, it's an investment that the board is making for this, and I would like to see some sort of measure how, like, what kind of bang are we getting for our buck, like, what's happening?
Like, for the communications position, or
No, just
like
for the media in general, and maybe
Okay.
if we have a way of, analyzing what we're doing, we can measure what we may need to do, and it's just a
For
way of
sure,
measuring.
yeah. I will tell you too, is if you're worried about cost, or if you're considering that, social media is considerably less. Like, we spend thousands of dollars less than even 5 years ago in that budget, because of we do so much digitally. Like, COVID kind of turned us that way, and just, the present day really has turned us that way, right?
Yeah.
Like, our print ad, we don't do a lot of that anymore, and that's where the money is. So we will sponsor posts from time to time, but it's, $20, $50 versus a $5,000 or $7,000 newspaper thing. So, but yeah, we can definitely, I can get her to delve into that a little bit further, and she's definitely the expert, not me. So I'll have her come back next month, and we can have some more in-depth conversation for sure.
Leahy?
Just, this is going off on another tangent. As we approach, registration, the visit I went with other trustees to John Paul II, we had an interesting conversation there with Principal Mr. Dumanowski. And as we approached registration, it just came to me that might be worth some kind of story or thing on social media from the division. What am I getting at? Mr. Dumanowski pointed out to us that a significant number of his population there at John Paul II are not Catholic, and they are other denominations. They identify from other denominations, but they've made the conscious decision to come to a Catholic school. So I think just a suggestion, if it doesn't happen, it's okay. Just a suggestion that would help us deal with the myth that's out there that you have to pay tuition and we only take Catholics.
And we do still, yes, I agree with you very much on that point, and we are still kind of working through that at all times. Actually, I had a really good chat with BJ, because he has a really interesting perspective from that of, you know, coming to Catholic later in life, and how can we get that out there? We do have a myths and facts page, and we do have those posts that we still put out on the regular kind of thing, because it is something, you know, you think you've talked about it, you know, a lot of times that people know, but it does come up all the time. So it is something in the back of our minds, but I will bring that up again too.
I know some of I haven't shared it with some of my evangelical friends, but if I'm not saying it would make a difference, it would make an impact on them if they knew that at the high school, there is a Bible study group going on and it's got 30 kids. And that, you know, I don't want to get into a discussion about, you know, we hear it from time, but to those folks, you know, that's a big deal. Like, you know, in school, you know, I know a time when I went to Crescent Heights almost 50 years ago, there was a Christian group there. I don't even know if they have those things in public schools anymore. But anyway, thank you.
Okay, anything else for Tiana, for Chelsea to take to Tiana? All right, let's move on to the approval of the superintendent evaluation. We have a motion here on the agenda to pass that. Is there any discussion on it? I thought it went very well. I thought, oh my God, her name just left my head right now. Cindy did really well. Yeah, David?
So, Madam Chair, I'll be happy to make the motion. As it's in the agenda here, I won't read the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I also want to comment that Ms. or Mrs. Vasilanic is an excellent choice because of her background in Catholic education. Yeah. And I know when I talked to her, giving my comments, we had quite a lengthy discussion about spirituality, Catholicity, and so to me, it's important to have somebody like that.
Okay, David is going to move this. Is there any discussion on it?
Well, I'd just like to make some comments. I'd
Okay.
like to congratulate Dr. Zarichny for the excellent work that he's doing, and the evaluation gave evidence to that, and I'm proud of the work you're doing, and I'm sure all of us are, and you should be proud too. So thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you, Deacon Robert.
Dick? Brittany? No, and I too would like to thank Dr. Zarichny for all of the work and the support and just the love that he shows us. So thank you. So we're going to vote on this. All in favor? Good. Monsignor McCoy band trip. Dwayne.
So we had an application from Monsignor McCoy to have a band trip that's going to BC. and we had our field trip committee meeting with them and went through the discussion as outlined in the AP. And the determination of the committee was that they had met all the requirements, and pending, of course, the submission of the final itinerary there, that we would recommend that the board approve the trip as proposed.
Okay, so we have another motion here on the agenda. Mr. Kinch, thank you. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Okay, and then the next one is St. Mary's field trip. Mr. McPherson.
Thanks, and this is specifically to an increase to the 22-23 school fees. The school has requested that the proposed fee of $65 be allowed and approved by the board to cover the cost of 2 coach buses and registration to attend the University of Calgary Music Department on February 9th, 2023. And the recommended motion is be it resolved that the Board of Trustees for the Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education approve the $65 fee to band students at St. Mary's School for the field trip to the University of Calgary Music Department.
Okay, would somebody like to move that? Deacon Wissing? All in favor? It's nice to see these going again. Okay, 11.4, political engagement prior to the next provincial election. Mr. Leahy.
I'm just suggesting, Madam Chair, that we give some thought to, it's been a while since we've invited our MLAs in to talk to us and coming into an election cycle, and that we approach other candidates, come see us. And doesn't need to be an hour long thing, it can be 15, 20 minutes.
With a break in between when they pass and the.
Well, I'm not, I just, it's been a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
And we should have regular contact with our MLAs.
Right. Well, I'm certainly in favor of that. Everybody? Maybe we can, Chelsea, we can get you to set up sometime. I don't know if we have all candidates declared yet.
No, we don't, but
Yeah. But as that comes around,
yeah, we know who our 2 MLAs are, we can start
Right,
with those
yeah.
meetings, and the NDP, I think, is having their nomination meeting sometime in the near future.
well, they have for Cyprus, Medicine at Cyprus, they have she was the chair of their board.
Right.
Kathy Hogg.
And there's,
And then there's somebody declared for the UCP in the Cyprus Medicine Hat. So I don't know if Drew Barnes is even running. And in Brooks Medicine Hat, there's the MLA, plus there's Gwen Dirk, said she was going to run again. So there is a few. Their names are out there already.
well, I believe the one candidate, Dr. Zarichny, has even been in to see you. He said in the paper he's going, that was Mr. Gruber, who said he's been going around to talk to superintendents.
Who?
Tim Gruber.
Really? I didn't know that. And who's running for?
NDP.
Yeah. But Kathy Hogg is Cyprus Medicine Hat.
I think she's being challenged by Mr. Gruber.
Okay,
Yeah, I think.
all right. Okay, I didn't know that. All right, so that's a good idea. Thanks, David, for bringing that forward. And the next thing on here is Division Professional Development 23-24.
This fits in with our wellness goal. To summarize, I think our staff has, well, everybody has been deeply impacted by COVID. I think we need to give as much time next year on PD days for our staff to be in their classrooms working on their stuff. And what, I just think we need to back off on our expectations a little bit on those days, so that they have a staff meeting, and they go to their rooms, they can work on curriculum, if they're in a PLC or whatever. Just back off. I'm not landing the helicopter and saying the board should mandate this. All I'm doing is expressing that desire as part of our one goal and strategic plans to say to our teachers, we know you need to recharge, and we have an excellent division. And I know I used the sports analogy last time. I'll use it again. Sometimes as a coach, you back off a little bit on your players. And that's what I'm suggesting.
A breather,
A breather. Yes, thank you.
Mr.
Just for the board's information, just kind of give you the quick version of how the PD works right now, our PD calendar. So the AT has PD reps at each of the schools, and they have a kind of a coordinator, that's Tara Enns from McCoy, and they have a PD rep administrator also that's a PD rep, and so they'll meet and they'll look at PD days after the calendar's done, and they'll discuss what they'd like for PD, and then Tara and I she'll come, we'll start talking about a PD calendar. Her and I will work together on that PD calendar. And right now, I won't count, to David's point there, I won't count days in August because that doesn't really fit what you're talking about. But right now in October, in December, and April, we do have time built in there. But I do hear your point, and I'll make sure that when we start talking about PD calendar, that becomes part of the discussion.
I really agree with that as well. I think teachers have been through the trenches, and it's time to get up in no man's land. If you want to go back to World War I, have some time there.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
If I can just again piggyback on that. So not only, from the board level, or sorry, the central office level, freeing up time, but sometimes the administrations in the individual school will see that time available and want to glom onto it with very good ideas often, but sometimes the teachers just need that breather, as you suggested. So at both levels.
And like David said, we're not landing the helicopter. We're just making a recommendation that
Make sure
we
that's
think
right.
they need a breather. Okay. All right, committee reports. Mr. Mastel, ATA? Negotiation.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We met for a full day here in his office with the ATA. And I think the agreed message coming out of that meeting was that negotiations are going well. I think that's pretty much all we're able
Allowed to say. Okay, thank you. QP, Deacon Robert.
Nothing to report.
I almost called you Dr. Robert.
Congratulations, Ron.
Next year.
Doctor of the church, there you go.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that.
Okay, Teacher Board Advisory, Mr. Kinch.
No reporting.
Support Staff Board Advisory? Mr. Riesling.
Nothing to report.
My goodness. It's getting late. QP Support Staff Advisory Committee, Mr. Leahy.
No report.
We are meeting January 12th, just as a reminder.
Thank you. Is that in the calendar?
I don't think so.
Student Board Advisory, that's me, nothing to report. Do we do that again? We haven't done that for a while.
We just had, from the last meeting to this meeting, there hasn't been any time.
Right.
So, but I'll get it.
Yeah, that was fun. That's a fun one to do. I have the funnest ones.
So I get to be the chair.
Yeah. Audit Committee. We haven't met or anything, have we, since we had a report last time, Mr. McPherson?
Audit committee is meeting January 20th to review the prior year's
Okay,
reserves.
And I do have that in my calendar, Mr. McPherson.
Thank you.
I probably do too, but I don't know where my calendar is. Division Consolidated Planning Committee, Dr. Zarichny.
Thank you, Chair. We met the last week of December. We reviewed the data that was gathered through Thought Exchange, and we're working on the message to the public, what we heard, and some FAQs, and as well a work plan is being developed for the committee moving forward. And so we'll be meeting once I get the initial document done for the FAQ and the what we heard, the committee will be meeting to review it.
Thank you. ASBA, Zone 6, Mr. Mestel.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I should have mentioned also in my ATA report was that our next meeting, negotiating meeting, is on Saturday, January the 21st.
Okay.
Zone 6, Madam Chair, met on the 14th of December. There was discussion about the change of the signing authority, and there was rather a lengthy discussion over audit. In our policy, it requires an audit, and they're looking at getting one of their secretary treasurers from the group, from the members to do the audit. I pointed out that they likely weren't qualified for an audit. I was challenged on that by a fellow who said there were 3 kinds of audits: external, internal, and CRA. I know that that's not a complete list because there are forensic audits and probably a basket load of others. And I held them that if we follow our policy, then we have to have an audit that is done by someone qualified to do it. If we're satisfied with a review engagement, then our policy needs to reflect that. So they're looking into that, but I told them that we had an issue in our division with an audit that wasn't an audit, and it was a sticking point. The ASPA executive was there, Marilyn, President Marilyn was there, and Vice President Shalley. Marilyn reported that they had attended the Canadian School Board Association meeting some time ago and had met with a number of ministers. And there's another meeting planned for Winnipeg in February. Sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, no kidding. Going to Winnipeg.
She thanked the Premier for attending ASBA, and as you know, the Premier made a point of meeting with her constituents. That included us, 76, and Prairie Rose.
And Brooks.
And Brooks Grasslands, I think also. So we had exactly 7 minutes to talk to her. It actually was a little more than that, but we had a chance to, or our chair had a chance to promote our capital project. On December 5th, the executive met with Sarah Hoffman. Sarah is the chair, or not the chair, she's the education critic, I believe, for the NDP.
Yeah.
I believe that's her title. Some of the things that they talked about were funding, board autonomy, curriculum, and transportation. They also talked about the weighted moving average with regard to funding and P3 schools.
Did they bring up Catholic schools?
At least it wasn't mentioned here.
Okay.
There were a couple of things that were mentioned that have already happened. That is the release of the PAT and the DIP results. The release of the new teaching standards happened also before Christmas. There was a discussion about teacher workload, and we had, I mentioned that had been a topic of conversation here at our board, and they were talking basically about all the extra things that teachers are required to do. Distributing medication, being trained on defibrillators, being trained on EpiPens, and all those kinds of ancillary things that are important that add to the teacher's workload. And the message was made by several of the members there that this kind of thing can't keep up. We can't be adding more and more duties. That there has to come a time when things have to be deleted from the teacher's plate. Question was which ones? And that's a tough discussion. Vice President Schaller reported that there were emergent priorities, including charter schools, a new advocacy campaign, and there was going to be a board meeting or a meeting of board chairs early in January. Have you had any notification of that?
I have.
Yeah.
I think it's on the 20th.
Okay. And the election of the new advocacy committee. The meeting, the AGM next year is going to be back at the Westin downtown. I think that's probably it. There's one other thing. There has been a change in personnel. Dwayne and Chuck and Hugh, you probably know this already. The executive, or Nathan Freed, who replaced Ron Taylor as our field rep, has been kicked upstairs. He's an executive director now. And our new field rep is Catherine Rasmussen. I don't know anything about her. She's a temporary until someone permanent can be named. But I expect that senior admin here already know that. That's the end of my report.
Good, thank you. Okay, next, ACSTA, that's me. We meet tomorrow. I sent all the trustees a governance thing out. I don't know if you had any reflection on that at all, but that's going to be the major part of tomorrow's Zoom meeting. So if you have anything, send it to me and I'll put it forward. I really didn't have anything myself when I read through it, but go ahead.
Are all the boards back with ACSTA? Is there still?
Not Edmonton. Everybody else is. But they're still holding out. They got a couple of points. But things have really changed with ACSTA. So I think it will be, but it just, yeah. And on January 25th, when we have our discussion meeting, Harry and Kelly are coming.
Yes, sir. I was just gonna add that they'll
For,
be here.
yeah.
And then we're gonna early lunch because they're gonna go to Blackbird.
Yeah,
Bowling,
that's what
so-
they said they were gonna be. They're kind of doing the southern suite. So they just want to come. It won't be a long meeting. They're just coming to say hello and just what the ACSTA is doing. And they're really good guys. I really like them. So we're in good hands, I think. Our past president has quit, resigned completely from even being past president. So obviously there was some issues there, but anyway, yeah, so I'll know more tomorrow. Okay, Education Foundation, Mr. Kinch.
Madam Chair, on the 17th of January, Foundation will be holding its directors meeting at 5:30, followed at 7 by its annual general meeting. That is my report.
Okay. When is that? January 7th?
17th.
At what time?
The annual general meeting begins at 7.
I'm gonna see if I can come to that, it's political.
You would be more than welcome.
Parent Association, we meet on the last Monday of this month. I forget what day that is, 30th, I think. Teacher Employee Bargaining Association, TIBA.
Madam Chair, there hasn't been a meeting, an engagement meeting since the meeting at the fall general meeting. I believe there's an engagement meeting scheduled, but I don't remember the date of it.
Okay. Okay, that's it for committee meetings. Now, we're not going to do that 11.5 now, are we?
Yes,
Are we?
were.
We're still doing that. Okay, all right. So that's the end of the committee meetings. We'll just do, oh, sorry, David.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that the board goes in camera, please.
Yes.
I think we need to vote on.
Oh, all in favor? I'm getting tired. Thanks, ladies.
So, it's 4 hours already. So how do we know we're off?
Chelsea's gonna tell us when
Give me a minute, but we're gonna go back to the other live stream for Dwayne.
Okay.
That's all we're gonna, Dwayne, can we go on the other live stream? Okay.